So thank you so much for all of you for being here. It's our strange reality of Zoom time, but we're glad to be here, to be together in this way, and to hear from our Ukrainian colleagues about what is happening in Ukraine and how their work is supporting Ukrainian community here in the Oregon and Washington area, but also Ukrainian community at home and away from home due to everything that's happening. My name is Peggy Fulda, and it's my pleasure to welcome you. I'm the program manager for Refugee Community Outreach. I also want to introduce our colleagues and panelists. Luba Gonina, who is a licensed professional counselor and art therapist, and has been the driving force of our Eastern European program in our multicultural counseling activities at Lutheran for how many years, Luba? 15?
Over 10 years.
10, yes. We also have Roman Savochka, who is our lead case manager in our OHP enrollment program, who is a pastor and a community organizer in his own right, and a really enthusiastic and energetic speaker, and also the inspiration to share with all of you today. And we have Salah Ansari, our district director of more than 30 years, Salah, and our multicultural counseling, multicultural community services across our 3 offices in Portland, Beaverton, and Vancouver. And we're so glad to have you here and hopefully to continue the conversation.
Thank you once again. Thank you for your time in being with us in solidarity with our brothers and sisters from Ukraine. My heart goes out to the people of Ukraine. And the war is always ugly, but if it's in the country, a sovereign country that has been invaded by a neighboring country, which I personally had that experience several years ago, back in 1979. At that time, USSR, Soviet Union, invaded Afghanistan, and for almost 9 years, our struggle in terms of independence and took its toll. We had close to 6 million refugees from Afghanistan, and up until now, that country is not the same again since that time. And these horrific pictures that I see these past few weeks, it really breaks my heart personally. And also the tragedy of war also produces a massive refugee population, which in this case, as you all know, some of the neighboring countries to Ukraine, and also internally displaced folks is huge for us. Lutheran Community Services Northwest have been involved in refugee resettlement since 1975, but in 1988, this was the beginning of the breakdown of the USSR, and some of the refugees actually started coming in 1988. I remember we received a call from our national office that they had a couple of families that would like to be resettled in Woodburn, Oregon, because there was a church. The pastor was Shevchenko, and I contacted him, and boy, that family, in a matter of 4 or 5 months, Woodburn was inundated with refugees from former Soviet Union. But specifically, good portion of the refugees, the 20,000 refugees from former Soviet Union that we have resettled since 1988 are coming out of Ukraine. I have such a wonderful memories of fond memories of my time that I visited Ukraine, spent some time in Kiev, and also Chernovtsi up north. So now when I see all these pictures of utter devastation, it really breaks my heart. And my colleagues here that are presenting tonight will give us their perspective. It's incredibly sad. So I know how much the community here, Ukrainian community, have been impacted by this tragedy. But people of Ukraine will prevail. Unfortunately, loss of life in all of these refugees. But, you know, you could have the tanks and bombing and all of that. But the will of the people will prevail in terms of, and that's what happened in Afghanistan and all the struggle that we had. Finally, they packed and left, but close to 2 million people lost their lives in that war. So thank you for being here, whoever is on this call, and for your support. As an agency, I'm sure, as we have resettled refugees from Ukraine, actually several cases that we were to receive in those final days before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Unfortunately, those cases, some of them may have fled the country to Poland and some other countries because we have not heard. And there's so many families here that are asking us questions. And we have some cases that are coming out of the southern border, that they have crossed the border and asking for seeking political asylum. So these are the kind of issues as an agency that have a long history of resettlement, especially with the Ukrainian population, that we are anticipating and hoping as soon as the government decides how to move ahead in terms of admitting refugees. Once again, it will be our honor and privilege to resettle and welcome refugees. But they're unfortunately, right now, their lives are shattered beyond imagination. So I will pass it on to Peggy and Luba and Roman. Thank you for being here. I know it's incredibly difficult for you to participate because emotionally, this just a devastating time for all of you. But in the meantime, I have worked with you, your perseverance, your courage in the work that you've been doing through Lutheran Community Services to your communities, that we appreciate you, we value you, and hope the best for you and your families back home. It really brings tears to my eyes anytime I watch those pictures. Just devastating. So thank you for being here, and Peggy for organizing, bringing us together this evening. So this would be, of course, one of many more webinars as we get refugees or welcome refugees from Ukraine. We will be turning to all of our community supporters to help us as people have responded with the Afghan crisis. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Salah. And one of the really strong threads here that was so clear to me, and speaking with Luba and Roman and some of our other colleagues, is really the power of the Ukrainian culture and the pride in this cultural identity and collective experience. And so we said we needed to share a little bit of that with you to understand what's happening and how you can support that process. So Luba, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to say right away that I'm not a historian, and I'm not, I'm an artist and art therapist. So it is my privilege, and I'm also feeling a little nervous to share the facts from this rich and amazing history of my country, my home country. And so I encourage you to learn more. We hopefully could share this PowerPoint so you could revisit. And down below is a link to YouTube, short, very short, but kind of informative video, just one of those that they would show to impatient people to learn briefly about, very, very significant, rich history. Just, I'm hoping that I could just give you a taste of it, because it is an amazing place. It's an amazing place on Earth, where life began very, very early. And some sources actually say that first settlements of humans were, as early as 50,000 years ago, or 50,000 BC. So, but for sure, like the quotes that I found recently, it was 32,000 BC. It's a very fertile ground between the seas, with lots of rivers, beautiful forests, lots of other natural resources. So, and mostly people grant Kiev, or Kyiv, pronounced in Ukrainian, is a mother of all Russia, all Ukraine, all Russia, all Slavic nations and cities. It's, Kievan Rus, or like the early Kiev settlements around the Kiev city, has been like a big empire from, northern seas, from cold, white, snowy regions to all the way down to Black Sea. So large, and some sources actually said that it was the largest at that time, at between 1879 and 1240, largest country in Europe. So the golden age of Kievan Rus is tracked back to the time of Volodymyr the Great. It's Tsar who ruled, who lived from 1956 to 1015, and he is the one who is canonized by Christian Church in 1244, bringing Christianity to Slavs, to Slavic nations. I grew up in Kiev, and one of the most beautiful, it's like one of the cities that has this mystical history of being placed on 7 hills. and over Dnieper River. And so one of the hills called Volodymyr Hill, and you can walk through the central street called Khreshchatyk to that hill. It's a, it's a common, used to be a common place for hikes or urban hikes, and it's a beautiful hill with a big monument. If you ever look at Kyiv, it will show it's a probably about 200 years monument of Volodymyr holding a cross over Dnieper River. That's where the first Christians of Kievan Rus were baptized. There are many reincarnations of this Kievan Rus, and I just kind of hold it a main highlight. So Ukraine is also known for their Cossack movements. And that was very significant for building Ukrainian character, because this was democratic military republic, and hetmanship, or it's it's a middle ages, so very strong uprising and withstanding a pressure from other countries that were trying to fight. And so Cossacks were free people. They elected their leaderships, and the layout, they were very strong army that that were fighting against Russia in 1648. And like a lot of the spirit remain in current Ukrainian minds and bloods. So there was 1764, 1784, Catherine the Great. So Ukraine was annexed by Russia. Crimea and other southern regions became part of Russia. And Tsars definitely imposed a Russian identity over there. From what I remember even learning in school, in 1860s, it was actually against the law to practice Ukrainian language for about 40 years, and a lot of brave Ukrainian representative of culture were doing it anyway, and getting in trouble and being put in jail. And that was, in 1800s. So just basically the Ukrainian identity historically formed under a lot of pressure and a lot of history of discrimination. And nevertheless, it was diverse, because a lot of different nations. Ukraine has borders with, I think, 6 different countries. And so there was a lot of exchange, a lot of like, a lot of different citizens that were traveling back and forth, and borders were fluid for a while. And so people observed a lot of culture, but yet Ukrainian identity was very strongly present. I graduated so I lived in Kiev. My family is from Kiev, as far as I can track, 5 generations back. And I went to a Kiev College of Folk Arts and Design. So it's my pleasure and my background to grow out of this cultural traditions and know it. Again, there are a few things about the differences between Ukrainian language and Russian language. And I can actually share that all education when I was growing up in the Soviet Union was imposed in Russian, but we did have few Ukrainian language schools, very few in the city. And I was able to study Ukrainian as a second language starting grade 4, I think. And so at the end of elementary school. In college, we actually took a lot of effort on our own as rebellious students to study and speak Ukrainian and perfect it and take pride of doing it, because that was what was forbidden, and that was what we wanted to identify with. So I am, 32 years out of 33 years out of Soviet Union. So I am right now taking actually a refreshment course on Ukrainian, because I want to bring back that Ukrainian identity became an incredibly important part of me right now that is yelling out to be solidified and recognized. And I am hoping that everybody else around me in this free democratic world also hear and understand that Ukrainian identity is strong, and it has this tremendous amount of culture, history, and language to manifest it. So there are videos of like the difference between Russian and Ukrainian language. I here right now, so a lot of Ukrainians came through right now that surround us, that are in our community, that are trying to bring their culture to recognition. And I think that's part of the tensions that we experience in here. Like, we don't want to be recognized anymore under like a big umbrella of Slavic or Russian speakers. It's important to see that it is a nationality, an ethnic group. It's a country that right now is at frontiers for fighting for democracy and defending their own identity. So that's kind of like my little piece, so you could learn how different Ukrainian and Russian is. And it's surprising that like a lot of people in the world recognizing that Portuguese and Spanish are different languages, but Ukrainian and Russian are not. And so I hear from community members how they're now trying to convince Portland and Beaverton libraries to buy books in Ukrainian, because the libraries denying this request from the community because they have a quote, and they promoted and bought like a large amount of books by Russian authors. And some of the Russian authors are like white supremacy enforced others like Prilepin. I'm not gonna go in details, but that, you know, speaking and writing in books about hate for Ukrainians and demolishing Ukrainian nation. So anyway, there's still like this fight in the community right now for recognizing and validating this national identity. We do have like a tremendous modern contemporary culture and representations, and I'm hoping that our cultural institutions like Portland Art Museum and others will bring more Ukrainian arts for people to see and connect, because you know, as an art therapist, I believe that's really strong way to open people up. So there's a concert coming up of Daha Bracha, is a very famous modern Ukrainian folk rock band. They're gonna be in Beaverton, New Beaverton Center, that I think on April 17 and 18. Good luck if you want to try to buy tickets. I wanted to say that I am also feeling very privileged to be part of Lutheran Community Services and to be in a position to advocate for services for this group, the Ukrainian population. And that, you know, being in frontiers of, you know, equity rights for particularly recognizing this situation and validating Ukrainian nation, and bringing services that we provided for Russian speakers for Ukrainians, for people who speak Ukrainian and identify as Ukrainians. And we need a lot of support in this area. We need, you know, we need everybody to first understand and recognize that this is a group that doesn't want to be identified by any other labels, and that they need to be served, they need to receive support equally to other ethnic or cultural groups.
No, but it was just so powerful. You were sharing with me, you know, how you and your friends were and some of your friends were learning to, went back to Ukrainian language classes, and this thread in the history and also in the present where Russia and the Soviet Union benefits from this idea that Ukraine is part of Russia, and that the Russification and the sort of interacting with these identities and these locations, and how so strongly in the conflict and the war currently, you're seeing such a resurgence and such a overwhelming, loud presence of what it means to be Ukrainian in such a world stage. And it's, you've laid that out really beautifully.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to mention that we've taken some steps from my position here, and you know, we Lutheran Community Services collaborated with our therapy program at Lewis and Clark, and provided a therapeutic session for the Ukrainian community just this last Saturday, and how people attending it and connecting connecting with themselves and to people who set the session and brought like art materials in Ukrainian folk traditions, and, you know, played Ukrainian like mild Ukrainian music on background, how therapeutic it was for the community and how much people recognized that support. And that was an amazing feedback. And I'm, so grateful that we could do it. And now we need a lot more of that. So.
Absolutely. And part of this independence and identity and cultural traditions that you both have shared with me, we also have this idea of what Russian propaganda is putting out there that sort of continues and furthers some of these trends that began so long ago, as far as kind of Russianizing Ukraine or attempting to. And Roman, both Roman and Luba really wanted to kind of speak to some of this fact versus fiction as we're exploring this this topic. Roman.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, when war started, it was huge propaganda. Sure, you need to justify what you're doing in country, invade other countries. They need to make some sense why they're doing this, and they make huge propaganda that Ukraine bad, Ukraine have some some weapons, and even some funny stories that even bird was bioweapon flying to Russia. And I learned this from some American influencer and political. They also talking about this, and I was so upset in the beginning of the war that not only in Russia they speak about this. Some American political and stars, they talking about some Ukrainian atrocity, nationalists. Some American rich men say, "Oh, Azov, it's like Ukrainian army, they are nationalists, they killing people," and all this huge propaganda, and it was so upset. Also, huge propaganda was that in Ukraine a lot of racism and a lot of discrimination. And I think because I raised in West Ukraine, and I think it is untrue, it's huge propaganda to justify war. And we know that Hitler also, when they invade Poland, they try to justify, they try to explain why they're doing this. Same in Russia. And I want to make clear that in Ukraine, we don't have any, like right now on official government, any discrimination, because Ukraine is multi-language, like 2 languages people speak, even in some minority, more languages, multi-religion. It's like you can have freedom. I think freedom in Ukraine, one of the highest in the world, but what they propaganda try to make that, oh, it's bad people and they deserve to be killed and they deserve to be, their government is bad. And I think what we must understand that is all not true, it's all propaganda. And second, what I want to talk about that I was raised like evangelical Christian in Ukraine. It's only 2% of all Ukrainians belong to evangelical, because mostly of them Orthodox or atheist. And right now what Russians do, because they are mostly Orthodox, they persecute again evangelical Christian. Sala talked about that many Ukrainians came 30 years ago. It's because of this persecution always in Soviet Union was against Protestant Christian, and many people came. And right now when Russia came, they already arrest many evangelical pastors. Because I am from pastor family. My grandfather was evangelical pastor. My 3 brothers right now in Ukraine, they pastor, and I was a pastor in Ukraine also. And we feel this persecution and evangelical afraid. If Russian will came, it will be against Soviet Union. My father was in prison because he was evangelical for 7 years. He was sentenced 25 years, but my father spent 7 years in concentration camp after Second World War, just because he was evangelical. And we are afraid this time can return if Ukraine will not win this war. And it's very important for us to pray. And when I heard about war, in first day, my brother called me because he lived in Kiev, close to airport. It's called a military airport. It was bombed. And he called me, and I was so stressed that I decide what I can do right now in this situation, and I try to get, I organize GoFundMe and start working with local churches and send money to Ukraine that people, all my picture here, what you see, it's I working with 60 churches right now and connected. We just, our purpose only to give food, because some people, they don't have food. And you can see here, giving bread, sometimes it's not enough to have just enough bread. Like 2 months ago, nobody can think about this, that people will be in line to have bread, because in Ukraine was pretty good economy. People can work and have pretty good life. And I visit often Ukraine, and right now people standing in line for bread. And I have GoFundMe page. I already sent more than $150,000 to Ukraine, to 60 different churches, and many churches here in America, because I connected to them. They support my mission. And my main purpose, that people in Ukraine have food right now, because some cities are already blocked by Russian, and people don't have food. People send me messages, texting me, writing on Facebook and asking for help. And I think it's what I want to say also, very important where you send your money. I don't want to blame anybody, but in Ukraine, officially very upset about Red Cross. That Red Cross gathering money for Ukraine, but don't send in even $0 to Ukraine, sending dollars to Russia. And it was Ukrainian government officially said, it's like, don't send money there. And if you want to donate money, please find some sources, some organization who send money directly to Ukraine. Because some people ask me, can you donate money to Poland, where people, refugees there? I say, Ukrainian who live there inside, they need the most. And also important that men not allowed to leave Ukraine. If you under 60, you stay there. And all my brothers stay there because they cannot leave Ukraine. And some refugees leave Ukraine, but mostly women and children. And also about America announced, maybe Sala know more, announced 100,000 will be resettlement to America, but nobody knows when. And more than 1 month already, and 0 people from Ukraine was resettled to America. From when in other country, any was conflicts, it was usually America react immediately. Here, I feel unfair, and I feel like discriminated against Ukraine through America, that they just promise and do nothing, mostly not help. I think America must help us a lot, because the American president signed Budapest Memorandum and took from Ukraine nuclear power. And right now, when this happened, nobody want to help us really and say, you are alone, small country, have war against this big country. And many people, like my friends, they move in. Do you know how people, refugee, move right now to United States? They fly in, they go to Warsaw, to Poland. From Poland, they fly to America. From America, they fly to Mexico. From Mexico, they cross walking border. Only one way right now open, and many Ukrainian just, it's cost approximately for one person $2,000–3,000. People don't have this money. If you have children, let's say 5 children, it's cost $10,000. And America create a way for people, and nobody know about this, that you can go legally only through Mexico right now. But you fly to Mexico through America, you cannot go out here from aircraft, you need to fly to Mexico and cross the border. It's like nonsense. And I don't know why Ukrainian cannot legally come here. And also it must be more awareness about this, because we don't have, like Ukrainian, we don't have any representative in American government. We don't have big voice, and I saw a lot of big political in America. They talking about bioweapon in Ukraine. I was like, what a nonsense. And in Russia, they show this political and justify, say, oh, see, American also talking about a bioweapon. And because of this, Ukraine deserve to be bombed. And because of this, what happened in Ukraine is deserve, and they justify. And my heart is so broken because of all this. And I think we must have some clear information, read some sources, real sources, like about Ukrainian sources, probably in English language. And yeah. Poland helped, last one, Poland helped a lot. Poland already accept, I believe, 2 million probably refugees. And main point, why Poland help a lot? Because Poland understand if Ukraine will be taken, Poland will be next bombed by Russia. Poland very understands the situation, and they help us not because they're so friendly with us. Yeah, I appreciate their help, but Baltic state and Poland mostly help Ukrainian because they understand what's going on, that they can be next if Ukraine give up. And yeah, we need to pray, support Ukraine in this very difficult time, because I feel it's small country left alone and huge country try to overtake, and everybody just support by word, but not even open legal refugee corridor, not even close sky. Ukrainian government asked, please close the sky over Ukraine. Europe and America afraid, and it's upset. Yeah, I think that's it. For if you have any question, I can answer from my perspective.
Roman, I'm realizing you sent me the link to your GoFundMe, and I am not seeing it here. And I would like to see it here, but I can share it if anyone would like it, and so we can make sure that that gets out there as well. We did also list some good sources of news from Ukrainians that are in the English language, and I have those links in addition.
Also, I was gonna address, there was a question from Samantha. So I think Etsy would be a great way to support. With Airbnb, what we hear that a lot of Airbnb in Western Ukraine were rented out, and people who are refugees trying to find a place to live could not.
Because they're reserved, I got it.
Because they were all rented. So it's not a good way to do it. Those Airbnbs needed for refugees from southern regions that move into the West. Please leave them for it. Other question I saw from Pierre regarding how to validate Ukrainian identity and culture and avoid a backlash against Russian community members. So that's a very, very good, important question. Roman, do you have?
Yeah, many Russian help and understand. I have here Russian pastor from Russia. He helped me to send money through Western Union to Ukraine. Many Russians, they understand what's going on. Yes, some, they support this war. I don't know what percentage in United States, because here in America, all our churches, it's mixed Russian, Ukraine, all Slavic churches, they mixed. It's not separate, maybe few only, it's mixed. And I think we don't have hate toward each other. And if you're Russian or Ukrainian, it's not people, it's government doing this. And I think in America, yeah, have some conflict, but it's not a big problem. Is if Russian understands that government doing wrong, like many Germany during Second World War, it's okay. And we always, I speak with a lot of, many Russians send me donations that I can send to Ukraine. And I feel support from many people, not everybody, but I feel like, who you listen to. If you listen propaganda, you believe this, or you listen other sources, you start understand, because it's not okay when today city is bombed. It's not today to support. If my country, let's say, invade Poland, I will say, stop, please don't do this. Even if I'm Ukrainian, if my country will do something bad, I will be against this government and say, please stop. And I think it's okay for Russian to say, stop.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, I think at this time, at this point, is very, very important to recognize and validate Ukrainian identity and make sure that Russian community, I think majority of Russian speaking community understand the need for that. A lot of them, I remember myself feeling weird about Ukraine separating in 1991. I was already here. I was glued to television and thinking, oh, what is happening? This is very hard to imagine. Yes, the two nations were intermarried, interlaced. The history is, mixed, but also this is part of the problem. The pressures to erase Ukrainian identity while it was present all this hundreds or over thousands of years is eventually like surfaced right now. So I think Russians will have to take that piece, and we as democratic country, as Americans, will have to communicate to Russian-speaking community about the need of equally recognize Ukrainian nation and Ukrainian identity, and be able to establish a line of services that are particularly focused on this language group, on this cultural group and nationality that has, it's not blended, it's not, it's interlaced historically, but it's not blended, it's its own entity. And the sooner United States, our state, Portland, Vancouver communities recognize that, then the sooner we'll have that balance, the sooner we'll be able to prevent hate crimes, prevent people lashing against it. If we officially recognize it and bring it to people's attention, then I think, there will be always some people who would be against it, but majority will accept.
Roman, could you put your GoFundMe information in the chat in case anybody is moved to donate to your organization? I'm so sorry I didn't make it to the slide.
Okay, I will try if I can find a way how to do it.
Salah, please.
Just one. Roman, I think what you talked about in terms of no official, the President Biden indicated in terms of some folks to be resettled, but nothing concrete at this point. But this reminds me of the importance of advocacy, how important that is for the community. I remember back in the mid 2000, must have been 2005 or 2006, we organized a group of evangelical pastors, Slavic pastors, including Ukrainian, and Pastor Ilya was part of that delegation that we went to Washington, D.C. and advocated for refugees from Ukraine and other parts of former Soviet Union. One of the things was part of our advocacy because folks from Ukraine had to go all the way to Moscow for their orientation and also for processing of their application. And that changed, ultimately that changed that for Ukraine, then the processing center was established in Ukraine. But up until not too long ago, people will have to make that trip all the way to Moscow. So I would say that you as a pastor and also some of the other pastors that need to get together and knock at some of these congressional delegations and asking those questions as to why there are not a firm designation of either refugee status for folks that are coming out of. I indicated to especially Senator Wyden, Senator, that why don't you expand that the Lautenberg amendment to include these new refugees so they can quickly process individuals, but I didn't hear anything from any of them. So, but it's up to the community to really mobilize in terms of advocacy, contacting congressional delegations on a regular basis. And even soon there will be a recess that people will come to Oregon, those from Oregon, the senators and House representatives, that you should form a group of people that could go and visit these offices. It's really important that they hear you. So it can be done, but it needs some time and some organization.
I think, Salah, you just make the entire point about why we wanted to hold this event and future events, because it takes more than the community itself. It takes the broader, it takes more than the Ukrainian community. It takes the broader Portland community, Vancouver community, to learn about what is happening from good sources to support Ukrainian cultural organizations and community events here, and also to support legislative advocacy for exactly the reason that you're speaking. It can't just be the people who are impacted by this current war and aggression. It has to be as many of us who are doing this work in as broad of a way that we are doing it, to be speaking to each other, to be speaking to the legislature, to be speaking in our communities, to raise awareness, and also work in these many different directions.
I just wanted to add to this, like a slightly different perspective. I know we're running out of time, but you know, the group of refugees that I belong to that immigrated many years ago in late 80s and early 90s, mostly Jewish descent, immigrated from Soviet Union, are also could be part of this legislation, because we are incredibly disturbed. I thought it was only me who was so deeply connected to Ukraine and Ukrainian culture, but I checked across all the refugees that were resettled for in like the same time as I did, immigrated in late 80s. They all connected and all experiencing the same thing, very strongly, recovering their Ukrainian identity, bringing, like, it's a really big part of us. So that's another big group, gigantic group that could support this legislation.
The Ukrainian community has shown us such a beautiful and painful example of solidarity, and it's our turn to act in solidarity and to be in solidarity with each other. That has been so captivating for me, and for I'm sure many other people that maybe otherwise don't have a broad or a deep connection to Ukraine or Ukrainian people, but it's powerful what is happening.
It's very inspiring. And, you know, we can speak about diversity and inclusion of the Ukrainian community, and who can talk about discrimination of other nations and nationalism if the president has, you know, strong Jewish roots and descent. So anybody is inspired right now by the strength and solidarity. Thank you for recognizing it and bringing it to this conversation, and hopefully many others.
Roman.
I put here, I don't know if you can see, because it's copied from my old page, I put here GoFundMe. I don't know if it's clickable or not.
We can also search your name in GoFundMe. I tried that earlier as well.
Yeah.
I think that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you again for being with us, and we look forward to the next conversation. And this recording will be available if you'd like to share it. I believe it'll be on our website.
And slides too.
Have a wonderful evening, and tell me I'm saying it right. Slava Ukrainu.
Дякую. Слава Україні. Дякуємо.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.